What's up, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Between the Cons. My name is Kris, and with me today, Kris Too.
Hey!
And the Ginger Giant.
Ah!
I've scared Kris Too away.
Oh, no!
Pulls microphone away from mouth. Anyways, thanks to everybody for tuning in today. We got a roundtable review for you. We watched The Dark Tower this weekend, and we're going to tell you all about it. But before we do that, big shout outs to everybody that's hit us up on the internet this week, on the Facebooks, the Twitters, the Instagrams, the YouTubes.
Yeah.
Because we're on YouTube. I mean, we are. It's true. We don't have a fancy link, but you can go to betweenthecons.com/YouTube.
Can I subscribe to our channel?
You can totally smash that subscribe button.
What?
Yeah,
Should they do that?
They should.
They should do that.
They should do that. You can stream a video of one picture just the whole time, or you can stream from our website, which is just like a audio bar. Yeah. Whatever suits your fancy with the streaming, the online internet streaming.
Fancy suits.
But yeah, so like I said, we've got a Dark Tower roundtable, so get into it.
Chewie, we're home.
Live long and prosper.
We don't need roads.
We'd like to shoot the monster. Could you move, please?
The Dark Tower, for those of you that might not know, is a movie that came out, which is why we're here.
We do roundtables about movies.
Yeah, also a book series by Stephen King. 8-book series.
7.
And a half.
He wrote an 8th.
Well, actually, it's 7 and 2 halves. Because there's the one book that's like book 0. And the one book...
What's book 0?
That is book 4 and a half. I don't remember. The name turned me off. But it's like something of the Elder.
Of the Eld?
No, it's of the Elder.
That was weird.
Or something. It's something along those lines. I'm going to look it up right now while we're recording.
Yeah. Cool.
But really quick, while that's loading, the synopsis for The Dark Tower. The last gunslinger, Roland Deschain, has been locked in an eternal battle with Walter O'Dim, also known as the Man in Black, determined to prevent him from toppling the Dark Tower, which holds the universe together. With the fate of the worlds at stake, good and evil collide in ultimate battle, as only Roland can defend the tower from the Man in Black. Oh, not even Elder. Little Sisters of Illyria.
Ugh.
Yeah, it came out after Wizard in Glass, and it is book 0.
Weird.
Yeah, it's really strange.
And
then
Wind Through the Keyhole is 4.5.
Yeah, Wind Through the Keyhole is 4.5. I could not get into it, but I blame Stephen King
because he does
for reading the audiobook, because he is the most monotone person to try and listen to. So really quick, the ratings for this movie. Dark Tower on IMDb has a 6 out of 10, 6 flat out of 10, 35 Metascore, and on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got an 18 on the Tomatometer, 4.1
They're
average
loving
rating.
it over there on the Tomatometer.
Yeah, seriously. And then a 63% audience score. People don't like it. Honestly, I liked it.
I liked it.
I thought it was a fan movie, for sure. You can't go into it without any background, but it's a sequel to a book series. And they said that throughout the entire marketing run.
Right.
So you can't come into it and say it didn't give me any information. Well, that's because it's a sequel to a book series. If you didn't read the book, that's your own fault.
Right.
Books. But yeah, let's kick this thing off. Let's go around the horn. Kris Too, what do you rate this thing?
I'm gonna give it a 5. 5 bullets.
It was on tier with Valerian, is what you're saying.
Yeah, for different reasons.
Okay.
For different reasons than Valerian. Yeah, I'm gonna give it 5 bullets.
Kyle?
I'm gonna give it a 6.8.
6.8.
I'll talk about why in a little bit, but that's my rating.
For me, based on some other movies that we've rated, which is how I always rate, I'm going to give it a 7. So that gives us a 6.3 average, which is exactly the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes.
I did all that math in my head.
Yeah,
Yep.
he did it
To make it happen.
on a Post-it note. That's why he rated it 6.8. He saw my piece of paper, said rating is 7. Did some on-the-fly math once Kris dropped his 5.
I didn't do that.
So that puts it somewhere in the middle of the last 20 movies we've rated. Logan still reigning champion at 9.3. Ghost in the Shell still the slow king at 5.
Deservedly so.
Yeah, it was bad. It was so bad I was the only one that saw it. After we all had planned to go see it.
There was a significant amount of conversation about all of us going to see it.
And then
in January.
And then once the ratings started dropping, no one
It was like,
wanted to see it.
don't feel like it.
And I had already planned to do the podcast. I recorded it by myself. It was like 12 minutes. It's hard to talk for that long.
Yeah,
like
just to yourself.
especially when you're planning to have other people.
Right.
And then you find out like a couple hours before you're on your own.
You plan your 12 minutes, I plan my 12 minutes, and then there's like 8 minutes of banter, and then there's your podcast.
Boom.
So if you want to listen to another podcast about a disappointing movie,
Roll back through our annals and find
Yeah.
find the Ghosts in the Shell.
BetweenTheCons.com/listen.
It'll actually probably be maybe some of the most effective 12 minutes of your life, because it'll probably save you from seeing Ghost in the Shell.
I took like 2 pages of notes on like a field note, like in a field notes thing, like as I was watching the movie, because I went to the movie by myself too, because my wife left me out to dry.
That'll happen.
So not only was I the only one on the podcast that saw it, but I was the only one in my house that saw it also. In fairness, she had no interest in seeing it.
that was not in the vows.
It was not it was in my vows, just not her vows. It really is in my vows just to watch like crappy movies with her, or movies that I think are crappy.
I remember that from
Yeah.
your wedding.
They're hanging on the wall in my bedroom.
Yeah.
Anyways, how did we get down this road? So the Dark Tower. I mean, Kris, what did you love? What did you hate? Why did you give it a 5?
So now is the time. If you have not seen the movie and you do not want it spoiled, stop here.
I loved Idris Elba, and I know that when it was first announced, when the first casting was announced and said that he was going to be playing Roland the Gunslinger
Via Twitter.
The internet's responded like the internet always responds, and some people lost their minds in the good way, and some people lost their minds in the bad way. I thought he was great.
Most people said he can't be black.
Yeah, which
Stephen King himself shut down.
Yep.
Yeah, and the moment somebody says that, it's like, all right, I'm done having a conversation with you.
And have a good life. I hope it's terrible.
No, Idris Elba was fantastic. I could watch untold numbers of movies with him as the gunslinger. He was fantastic. He was great. I loved his world weariness. I loved how much he was trying to bring, like, he was trying to bring a lot from, I think, from the books or the background for this movie that wasn't even in the movie itself.
Yeah.
He was trying to, like, this character that's carrying these scars and these and a lot of just this grit and grime in the world that is just beating him down. So, but he keeps going. So I thought he was fantastic. Can't say enough good things about Idris Elba, and I want him to play in all movies about all my favorite characters. So,
Aragorn. In 5 years, they're going to start remaking Lord of the Rings. So we got to start thinking about Aragorn.
Again,
Wouldn't-
not being
wouldn't-
Viggo Mortensen.
Wouldn't mind at all. Let's do it.
Just saying.
So I don't know. There were a couple things I loved. The casting in general in this movie was good, I think. But I think Idris Elba in particular really stands out, carrying a role that it's a shame it wasn't written better for him. But
Yeah.
I thought he was great. But yeah, for my hate it though, this movie is not that long, and I hate that we spent so much time not following Idris Elba's gunslinger Roland in this movie. I hate that so much of the time was spent following Jake, the main character, the kid.
We got that one flashback and like 25 minutes.
Yeah, because if the audience isn't aware, it's the movie's in the books, the gunslinger is the main character, and we follow him throughout the whole series. And Jake is in the books, and he does walk with Roland, but he's not the main character, and yet this movie made him the main character. And I get why they did. I understand, like the be it the producers or the screenwriters or whatever, they want to use Jake as the vessel, the avatar that takes us into this fantasy world. But I don't need that, man. This is a science fiction fantasy story. I've already bought into that. I've already bought into that. Like I said before we started recording, I don't need another vessel to bring me into Lord of the Rings so I can identify with the hobbits and the elves. Like I get it. I get it.
I get where you're coming from. I thought it was really. I agree as well. I never thought about it that way. I thought it was really interesting in the movie how they kind of like expounded on the psychological state of Jake and how everybody thought he was crazy and how he was having all these vision dreams.
And
I thought it was neat.
Yeah, and I also got why they brought that in, because again, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more, like the pieces from the book that they did try to from different books that they tried to pull in, and that was definitely something from book 3 that they pulled into his character to be a part of this story. To appease the fans, maybe.
I did want to punch Jake's like neighbor friend.
Oh,
the other little kid that was his friend that lived like next door or whatever. He was so annoying.
The little Brooklyn kid.
Yeah, he was super annoying, and it was a completely pointless character.
Mm. Yeah, so I mean, I guess to sum up this hate of mine, I hated that the movie that Jake was the main character, not the gunslinger, and as a result, because this movie was so short, we spent so much time especially at the beginning of the movie, following Jake in New York, when I just want to get to Midworld and see the gunslinger and see all the awesome world building that the books gave us, that Stephen King drew out over all his books, and I hate that we didn't get that.
Yeah.
So that's my love it and hate it. I
digress.
Many more, I'm sure. I already know that I agree with you guys on yours as well. So Kyle.
Yeah. So I also really enjoyed Idris. I particularly enjoyed Roland because, well, for a lot of reasons, but he's very flawed in the books, and you know that from a lot of different things. But if you have any history with the books, you know that he's wantonly killing. He's like sort of just hanging on in this world, trying to follow the Man in Black, trying to hold on to the thread of goodness that's been given to him, and he's not doing a very good job of it in the books. And but in the middle of that, he also has this like gunslinger white cowboy hat thing that's been passed down to him that he's trying to live up to. And I thought in this movie they did a really good job of explaining that, and even going a little bit farther. And because we know farther to the extent of him having basically lost that identity as a gunslinger, and we hear people, question whether the decisions he's making line up with him being a gunslinger. But I think it particularly works in a movie that's considered, as you said earlier, Kris, considered a sequel and not a remake, or not a compilation between books. This really is a follow-up story. If you know anything about we won't completely ruin the books for you. We'll talk about some things that are like spoilers, but we won't completely ruin it. There's a very big plot twist at the end of book 7 that basically informs us that Roland is always going to be on this quest.
Right.
And so I thought they did a particularly good job showing how like tired, how flawed he is, how like
Sure.
he's caught up in this and he's tired of it. So I thought they did a really good job with that. I also really loved Matthew McConaughey's performance as the Man in Black. He didn't have any drawl in his voice. He didn't, he wasn't bringing mud into this movie. He wasn't bringing like Clueless, all right into this.
Yeah.
He really was very, very sinister. But just like his acting, I really, really liked.
Yeah.
I hate it. I'd agree with you, Chris, that it was just too short, and I just finished reading the books, and so even though I knew what it was going to be, so much of me wanted 2.5 to 3 hours of let's dig into this world. And let's explore and explain and start, even if it is a follow-up, let's explain where we're going. And I think we can probably infer where future movies will go, particularly, because we know that there's a TV show coming out about Roland's childhood, which is basically book 4. The directors have said that they are willing to do more movies if this movie and the TV show are well received. What well received means, what the definition of that is, we don't really have a clue, because it's not going to make $20 million this weekend.
Nope.
What I saw this morning. Also, Matthew McConaughey has he was quoted a couple weeks ago as saying that months ago, not weeks ago, but that he chose to be in this movie instead of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 because
Which
the role
sucks.
that he was offered in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was a 1 movie role. And this has the potential to grow into multiple movies. So at the end of the movie, we have the Man in Black supposedly dying, but I think there's a lot about Midworld, about the Dark Tower atmosphere that tells us this isn't the last time we see him if they decide to make more movies. So
or if they do the prequel series and
right.
And yeah, I mean there's so much world building, and like they just hinted at it in this movie.
Yeah.
Like you got a one line from Matthew McConaughey that said his guns are made from the sword of Arthur of Eld, and on Earth they call it Excalibur. And then that was it. And I was like, and my wife turned to me and was like, "What's that about?" And I said, it's a whole thing.
Let's go to coffee after this and let me explain it to you.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah,
it's really cool. Like all the stuff that you get in the books that they barely even mention in the movie.
And
but
that's
whatever.
the one thing that I like. I think I said it the first time it came up. Is I wish this would have started as a TV series instead of started as a failing movie that then went to a TV series.
Especially because there's been so many good books being adapted into TV series. Like this is the time for it. Yeah. Between streaming services and premium channels, like people are doing it and they're really good. So this would have been a great like doing the actual book series as a TV series would have been awesome.
Yeah,
and you can get good actors.
I think it would have fit more with the flavor of the books too,
right?
Because the books don't necessarily fly.
No.
There are exciting points in the books, but man, there are some 95-page sections.
It's like even books. That. Well, I think like The Walking Dead. The reason I stopped watching The Walking Dead, the reason I stopped watching Game of Thrones, like the reason I stopped watching these shows that are like everybody's all over is because they don't keep my attention.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel like Dark Tower as a TV series has the potential to have that because there's 80 pages, 100 pages of just like absolute intense, nonstop, like edge of your seat kind of stuff. And it's followed by 95 pages of, and then they walked through the desert.
I mean, they definitely shouldn't have. It's a good thing that they didn't try to just do a straight adaptation of the first book, because the first book is just one long chase sequence across the desert.
Well, I
and
think
the
if they would have done an adaptation, a true adaptation of the first book, it would have merited the 95-minute runtime a lot better.
Because it's 290 pages.
Well, and 190 of those pages are walking.
Yeah.
walking through the desert.
Like walking, comes across this house.
What
Walking,
Walking.
comes across these railroad tracks.
Right.
Walking. Everybody
And
dies.
around the campfire, let me tell you the story about how I killed a whole town.
Right, yeah.
And
And then
now I'm going through this mountain mine, and
Yeah.
2
it's-
pages of people falling asleep.
Right.
And
That's
sort
true.
of having like half waking up and watching other characters as they walk slowly into the darkness pensively.
Yeah.
Because they've got stuff to work out. You know, like
Right.
there's just a lot of those types of sequences that are fine because they set the tone of a book, but it didn't. This felt disconnected.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah,
I don't think
from
we're
where the books are.
justifiably like selling people who are listening to this who haven't yet read the books. Please don't take what we just said as like, oh man, these books sound boring.
The books
Like,
are
no,
excellent.
Really,
They're
the books are
amazing.
excellent.
But they are fantasy journey novel.
Yeah,
and some of that is
an epic
world building,
fantasy. Yeah.
and some of that is setting the tone and letting you know who the flavor of the people are. And that's not
Yeah.
all, knights in shining armor, clashing sword
Right.
stuff. Like that's
Yeah, and for me, I think the one thing that about just kind of harking on the runtime with you guys is it felt like the Gunslinger's speed run. Like
Yeah,
everything
Yeah.
happened because the novels are so epic, like literary epic, not like bro that's epic, like literary epic. There's so much world building, there's so much, like, though he's just walking through a desert, it's not flat. Like there are things going on that are being talked about, but it's to see it on screen with a 95-minute runtime. And it's just, I remember I'm not a person that looks at my watch during movies, but I remember because this one was 95 minutes, I was like, we were getting to a point where I was like, maybe this movie's just taking a while. Like, it just feels like it's taking a while.
well,
'Cause
and
I
if you
feel
go
like
in
we're
knowing,
pretty
if you
far
go in
from
knowing
the
it's 95
end.
minutes, you know it's 95 minutes, and you're like, when are they going to get to the next part? Because we're running out of time.
Well, for me, it was the opposite. It was like, this movie feels like we're getting close to the end. But I also feel like it's been on for a while. It's like, maybe there's like 30, 45 minutes left, and it's just not necessarily dragging, but just running slow to accommodate. And I look down at my watch, and there's 15 minutes left.
Yeah.
And, like, Roland hasn't even, like, touched the portal to try and go save Jake.
Yeah. And then that like sped right through it.
Yeah, and then it was
yeah, and then you had the
gunfight.
final clash. And
Yeah,
bam, bam.
gunfight, gunslinger versus man in black, and then, like, hot dog scene.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say to close my segment, we can talk about yours, but like I hated the ending because the ending of every one of the books ends in tragedy.
Yes.
There is something sad that happens at the end of every book,
Yeah, and
it keeps you wanting to come back and know what
Almost-
actually happens.
almost all of them are, like, tragedy cliffhangers.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you have to pick up the next book to figure out if, oh no, Jake just died at the end of book 1.
Yeah.
Wait, that wasn't supposed to happen.
Right.
Like I thought he was about to get hit by the car. I thought that was going to be like
Right.
an element of book 3, that we know, and like the reason why Jake is like tormented in book 3 is because he's died before, and in this one it's because he's got all these visions and stuff.
Right.
I thought it was going to pull some weird like time warp thing at the end. That would have been a lot cooler than just, hey, we're chummy now because you don't have parents and we're eating hot dogs.
Even you said, like, in the movie where Roland aims into the portal after he kills the man in black, he aims into the portal and he shoots, like, the brain-sucking machine.
Yeah, that's right.
But, like, we got out of the movie and Kyle was like, I thought he was going to shoot him in the head. And, like, that was how it was going to end. Was like
Because
that
that
initial sacrifice
Yeah.
Roland kills
for the
Jake
tower.
at the end of the first book.
Right, yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about it, but that would have been so much better.
That would have
oh,
been
man, that
a Dark
would've-
Tower movie.
Yeah.
He also could have just shot Frank Kranz, because Frank Kranz needs to be released from this this purgatory where he's playing the same character that he played in Dollhouse.
Who? Who are you talking about?
The guy that ran the machine. He plays the stoner in Cabin in the Woods, and he's the computer tech guy. He's the exact same character in Dollhouse.
I've never seen
Dollhouse. And it just took me out. Like, I was watching this movie, I was like, oh, it's that guy in this basically doing the same thing. He's the guy that can hit computer buttons and run the brain machine.
Yeah,
the
cool.
Village.
He's
and
the
Donnie
nerd.
Darko. Weird.
Yeah. So.
And he played Pimley.
Mm.
So I'm going to take over now. Love It and Hate It. My love it. My love it and hate it are about Walter, the Man in Black. So my love it was Walter. I loved Walter. I think they took him down a very, 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 very dark path.
Yeah.
And I think it was outstanding. When we were talking before the show, Kyle mentioned like it was really cool because we didn't see a lot of him in the book, which I think might be why I liked him so much. Because in the book, he's like, what did I say? He's more he's more menacing. Yeah, he's more menacing, and then in the movie, he's more maniacal.
Yeah,
And I love that.
in the book, you feel his presence when he's not there, but
Right.
in the movie, seeing him and what he did was ruthless.
Yeah, and he is just very like emotionally empty, twisted dude. Like kills people at the drop of a hat. Like burns that girl's face. Like
Have a good apocalypse.
and then just lets her go.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, what?
Just out of curiosity, do you think, because this is because of how the book series cycles, and because of how Matthew McConaughey played this, do you think he was playing it in a way that he was kind of like almost not bored, but definitely he's almost like he's done this before?
Oh yeah, I could definitely see that like in his character, like because he was so cool and collected.
Yeah.
For almost the entire thing, except for at the very end when he shows up at the portal. But like one more thing that I just thought of that's like absolutely twisted and crazy. When he kills Jake's mom, like burns her to death, and then writes on the wall in her ashes. Like, are you for real?
Yeah. That
Oh
was
my
rough.
gosh. But I loved that about him. He was so dark and twisted, and it was such a great, like kind of like you said, like he didn't bring mud into the movie.
Yeah.
He didn't bring like Dazed and Confused into the movie. It was
Gold Rush, where he's
Gold
just a
Rush.
surfer dude.
yeah. Yeah, like he was a good character.
How you doing, Roland?
Right.
Yeah.
But it was really good. And then the thing I hated, more generally stated, is the cheesiness of the movie. Specifically, two instances. The first one, Walter's magic hands.
Yeah.
So for the entire movie, he's able to like do things with his mind, with like just by speaking them, or just like
He's a
willing,
wizard.
just willing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, he gets in a fight shootout, I guess.
Sure.
Sort of.
A gun versus magic shootout with Roland, and it's awesome. And then he starts using like Jean Grey Matilda hands. And I hated it. I hated it so much.
Minority Report.
Yeah, he's like
manipulation of a screen.
Yeah, he's like picking up like a block of concrete and like throwing it, catching glass by like doing like mime hands.
He hits Roland with that slab of concrete, and of course Roland's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, he's
Stronger than most.
stronger than
Stronger than most,
Stronger
yeah.
than most. Yeah. That's a quote from the movie. But yeah, I just didn't like that. And then the second thing, like cheese related, was the whole hot dog scene at the end, where it's like, "You're like my father." Like, what, dude? We don't have this conversation till book 7. Like this conversation does not happen until everyone's backs are against the wall and people start dying For real.
And that scene where he calls Roland his father in the books
Is the biggest tearjerker.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Seventh book. And it's at the end of the first potentially only movie. And it's just like,
And I think it's even sadder for someone whose father does cocaine and is absent than for a guy who in the movie had a great dad.
Had a great dad who had died.
yeah, who
Yeah.
died. Yeah.
And he's known Roland for a day.
Essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was weird. I don't
Yeah.
But those were my two. Those were my love it, my hate it. The just Walter being messed up, just crazy, twisted, and then the cheese of it all.
Yeah.
And
I wish the portals were doors.
And not
just old school
weird.
looking doors.
Just doors.
Yeah.
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 There's a lot about what makes the Dark Tower that wasn't there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe they couldn't do all that because it's a 95-minute movie, and they set out to do that for budgetary reasons because they knew it was going to be a bit of a toss-up, and they didn't know if they're going to make $100 million on this or they're going to make 35. They may not make 35.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that was in the books that it just feels like either they completely disregarded or they didn't know about. And
I didn't know.
well, because in a way, this feels like a movie that was written by somebody that read the Dark Tower Wikipedia page.
Right.
And that's because they were like, okay, there's this one scene in there that was in the Wikipedia summary. And oh yeah, there's the gunslinger oath mantra that they do, which we didn't even mention, but I mean, I enjoyed that.
That
Man.
was sweet.
Both times that
Yes.
scene happened. Like
Yeah.
with the nationwide guy and
The nationwide guy. I think of him as the 24, as
Yeah.
President. Oh no, what was his name in 24?
I don't know. I don't
Same.
even know his real name. He's just nationwide guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so like it was like they were pulling not even greatest hits
Right.
from the books, just like
Dennis
there's a tiny
Haysbert,
piece here and
I
a tiny
totally
piece
did know
there.
that.
Huh?
Dennis Haysbert. I totally did
Yeah.
know that.
But yeah, he's and when they made this, it felt like that's what it was. And I think Chris or maybe Kyle, you guys said before we started recording that it was like they made this movie for the fans
Yeah.
of the series and
Yeah.
not for the general public, which is fine, but at the same time it's also not really what the fans wanted either.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird movie to make. And yeah, and the idea of it being a sequel and tying into the cyclical nature of the books, that's a cool idea. If it had been done better, because it was so I don't mean to harp again on it was so short, but it felt like if it was Lord of the Rings, Frodo gets the ring. What do I do with the ring? Well, you got to put it in Mount Doom. How do I get there? Well, we'll walk over there. Okay, we're there. Throw it in. Okay, we're done.
Right.
Like it was so quick and in a weird way anticlimactic.
I agree.
It
Also,
was so.
I just realized that Dennis Haysbert is Allstate, not Nationwide. Nationwide is
The guy from
Mr. Mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Guy from 30 Rock.
I was gonna say Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's the
Also
vulture.
Brooklyn
Yeah.
Nine-Nine.
But yeah, I'm really interested to see what happens in the future. Like we already talked about, there are potential sequels. It all depends on how the movie performs as far as box office goes. With an 18 on Rotten Tomatoes, it's not going to do very well domestically. International might give it that push.
Who knows? Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, Transformers keeps getting made, so
Right. Seriously.
how many Transformers movies are there now? 5?
5. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all because of international sales, overseas sales. That's what helps
Exactly.
give it that push. And Dark Tower is it fits what they look for.
I didn't know it was PG-13 until I got into the theater.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Because
Yeah.
Do you think it was
They
rated
did-
R?
it should have been. Which is again
Right?
another reason it would, if it was a series like on Stars or Showtime or HBO, could be closer to what the books are.
The interactions with the Tahine and the vampires and even the like saloon stuff at the first, it's a very graphic book.
Yeah.
Not to mention the language and stuff that give it that sort of like
I think it
post-apocalyptic feel.
I think in the future, for whether it flip to series or continue filming sequels, I think they'll push the PG-13 rating a little bit harder. I don't know if it'll ever move to an R. I don't know. But I think, like, especially when Eddie Dean comes around,
yeah,
like there's
heroin and I mean even just his character.
mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you think like Susanna and Odetta Holmes, like when they start
the racial issues that are brought up there.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Detta has to be able to use the N-word.
I was about to say, you just think about Detta. I mean, the N-word's not gonna change the rating at all.
It's not.
No. But Detta's got worse a mouth than Eddie does. Yeah. Like in the very beginning when she first gets introduced and she's making that Detta like flip back and forth, Detta, like there's one comment that Eddie makes about like how she's a potty mouth, which is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
I think it'll get pushed a lot more. I don't think it will ever make a shift to an R unless it's picked up by a premium network.
Yeah, and you know who's like the guy behind the series that's as of now is still moving forward.
Who is that?
It's Glenn Mazara. He's one of the main guys behind The Walking Dead.
Okay.
So
I don't know.
I think he was a writer on like the first season.
Really?
If I remember correctly.
I wanted it to be more like Westworld.
I'm with you, and again, it very well could. I mean, just because he worked on Walking Dead. Walking Dead was made for AMC, not a premium channel, so there are things they have to take into consideration there. But it could be really interesting if they are able to land it on a good or I mean even on Netflix or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll make it to Netflix. I don't think it has the groundswell. I think they'll have to have some level of domestic success after The Dark Tower, because I mean it's sitting at a 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, and that doesn't bode well. That doesn't give Netflix any initiative, any motivation for picking it up.
So instead, we get another season of Fuller House.
Great. So I think for The Dark Tower, for the future of The Dark Tower, it all comes down to what are the total box office sales going to be? And then from there, what does that look like domestically? And then we already have this TV show pretty much all but started. Like they've already written it. They've already got everything planned out. They've already got everybody on board that they want on board, I think. It's just a matter of getting it done. So I think they were fleshing out the movie to see how that did. So I think the future of The Dark Tower rests on its own shoulders.
Who would play Roland?
I think Idris Elba is contracted.
It's a kid.
Oh, because it's the kid.
If it's his younger years.
For flash forwards, it would probably be.
Yeah, there was
because I know that's
him
included
doing
in their like multi-movie contract.
Interesting.
Kind of like
maybe he's sitting around the fire telling him the story.
Yeah.
It's like Chris Evans when he appeared on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like it's in all of their contracts to appear on the TV show if needed. I don't know who would play him though.
John Boyega came into my head, but he's a little too happy.
Well, I think he's a little older.
Yeah,
because
I mean, if you were
like
doing
17 in the book, right?
Yeah, because he's
in Wizard and Glass, he's like 16. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see who they pick though. But yeah, I think overall, I would like to see a Dark Tower thing again.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah,
I would watch this movie again. Like I will watch it again. I don't know that I'll go to the theater again.
Yeah,
but like I will watch this again because it's just fun to be in that world visually.
Oh, for sure. So wrapping things up, Dark Tower, 63% or 6.3 out of 10 for Between the Cons. 63% on the audience score, 18% on the tomato meter.
Yeah.
Tomatometer. I accidentally said it correctly that time.
Yeah.
35 Metacritic, 6 on IMDb. We're the only ones that matter with our 6.3. So,
Dang right.
check it out. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It's got really good action. The gunfight scenes
Gunfights are
are
awesome.
amazing. I don't know if it's something you have to see in theaters. I don't think you have to. So maybe wait till it comes out. Wait till it hits Netflix. Do whatever. I think it's worth checking out though.
A $4.99 Apple TV rental.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I'd pay
there you go.
$5 again to see it.
Sure.
But yeah, go check out the movie and other things. Check out all the things. Let us know what you guys thought. What did you love? What did you hate? What would you rate it if you saw it? And yeah, I'm really interested to see what you guys think. I think it's
Post some comments on our Facebook page. Let us know
Please,
what you didn't like.
Please do. I don't beg for comments, but I'm really interested to see what like not terrible people think of this.
And you guys are not terrible.
Right. You are not. But thank you so much for tuning in. That's it for the show. Go to betweenthecons.com to stream our episodes online. Link out to our social media. If you want to sponsor the show, Amazon, Patreon, and Satchel will do it. Betweenthecons.com/any of those. And then finally, subscribe. It's one button. Makes you listen to all of them. Doesn't makes you. Make sure you don't miss any. There you go. We release new content every Monday and Thursday. And it's a good time every time.
Oh, it's a good time.
Good time every time.
Good time.
Hot diggity.
Hot diggity. But yeah, we're going to be back on Thursday. We're going to be bringing you some nerdy news. But until then, you guys have a great week. We will talk to you on Thursday.
Bye.
Bye. Noises.